start the ABR meeting for April 2nd with general business and public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on an item not on the agenda? All right. I'll close that portion of the agenda and go to the second item, which is approval of the minutes of the meeting of March 19th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
All right. Motion made by Keith, seconded by Stephanie. Do we have any comments on the minutes before we take a vote? You have a question? Go ahead, Stephanie.
I was planning on abstaining. Is that right?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Any comments?
Item number 5, 25 East Mason Street. It lists me as the landscape architect, but I'm not involved with that project.
Well, that's good to know. That's 25 East Mason Street. You stepped down. Maybe that's why they thought that. Did you get that, Gloria? Okay.
Yeah, there was a project by the same architectural firm that I was involved with. That was number 4, but I'm not the landscape architect for number 5.
So you didn't step down from item 5?
I did step down.
You did step down,
Yeah,
but
it
not
shows
because
me.
you were the landscape architect?
Right.
Okay. Anything else on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1 abstention by Stephanie. We have consent calendar for March 26. Can I have a motion to ratify that consent calendar? Motion made by Chris, seconded by Keith.
Okay, for consent calendar last week, March 26th, we had item A, 422 and through 448 Santa Fe Place. A review after final was approved as submitted. Item B, 2206 Oak Park Lane. The applicant requested that be postponed to April 23rd.
Oh, gosh.
Item C, 616 East Valerio Street. Got a project design approval. Consent last week was reviewed by Paul Zink and Chris Gilliland.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar for April 2nd. Can I have a motion to ratify that? Motion made by Chris.
Second motion.
Seconded by Keith.
Okay, for consent calendar today, April 2nd, we had item A, 1435 Cliff Drive. Got a final approval with conditions as noted on the plans. Item B, 812 West Victoria Street. Got the applicant was proposing S-tile on some 10 residential units, and the S-tile was not approved, but they got a final approval of an alternate flat tile. Item C, 131 Anacapa Street. Got a final approval as submitted of the landscape plans. And consent today was reviewed by Keith Rivera and Chris Gilliland.
All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Do we have any announcements, Tony?
Paul Zink will be absent today.
That's
the
it?
only announcement I have.
Any subcommittee reports? Oh. Okay. Any more announcements? Subcommittee reports? Any? No. All right. So we can go on to item number 1, 25 East Mason Street. It's a continued item. And we last saw this project
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Do you want me to read the minutes, or do you want to go over the items just one by one?
I'll just go through them
You
one
want
by
to go
one,
through?
if you like.
Okay. Looks like the first one is landscape plan. Go ahead. Your name for the record.
Clay Orell with AB Design Studio. And with me is Anthony Ellis from AB Design Studio. We were here a couple weeks ago with exterior changes to the building. Stephanie here, good to see you. Great. Return with landscape plans. We'll go to.
You don't have to do that one first if you don't want to.
Okay. Study potential variations in glazing. Study inclusion of additional secondary elements. Additional information about the parking lot. So I'll do the 3 and 4. The glazing. We'll look at the elevations. So there was a comment brought up about some of the window placements as they related. I think Gary, you brought this up about there were some windows shown and where the bathrooms were. Our intention on this, there's some here, is that as this scope of work gets constructed, the interior is going to get redone as part of that. So this won't be an issue in the future. I just wanted to point that out. We're looking at it more from exterior, so let's get to A41. Okay. So this is the parking lot side. The faces Anacapa, and as we discussed last time, we're still proposing the large windows, the warehouse style windows, and the same on the ground floor. We've altered this slightly from our last version per the client's wish to have a few more windows on the parking lot side. This might help to kind of understand the future of this building, or at least the intended future, is that this would end up being more office space, general office uses on the second floor, and the ground floor probably more retail uses. So obviously the visibility is important, both from the parking lot side and Helena Street and Mason Street. So that's been sort of the impetus for the amount of windows at the ground floor. We've since come in and we're altering or fixing some of the ADA issues on this ramp. A new entry door with a canopy over the front. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on there in the elevation, but essentially this is coming out from the building a couple feet. And we're reorganizing the stairs here, and this will be, this is currently an entry point as it is today, and it will be one in the future. These are just lights here to kind of help light the ADA ramp. Going to the train track side, we had originally had some windows down here. We're actually going to leave the second floor, and we're going to keep this ground floor windows as they are today, because it's really just looking onto the train dock and the train tracks, and there really isn't any view or anything out of there, so we're keeping that. So that reflects what's here today. On the ground floor, train side. This is the Helena Street address, or side of the building, excuse me. We have these large high bay doors that we're intending to keep. This is where we're adding our entrance to the elevators. The elevators are two-sided, so you can come in here and access the roof as well. This we're looking at kind of a metal system. It's kind of emblematic of this idea, except this is in wood. But the idea is that there's a material, in this case, kind of a metal door or a metal skin on the doors that reflects what's there today. You have that photo there. So this is a photo of the door that's there today, which is kind of an old warehouse metal door, which we think is really cool. So we're kind of using that motif a little bit. And then the canopy idea is kind of just popping out from the entries, kind of similar to the way this is in language, not in material. So that this material comes up and then it comes out. In this case, this material comes up and it comes out. It's just a little eyebrow. I think we only did a couple feet deep, I think. So it's not a very large element sticking out of the building, but it helps kind of break up the mass of those things a bit. And then on this side, this is the Mason Street side, and again, we're intending this eventually to be more of a retail based down here, but we have, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but the first floor of the building is about 4 or 5 feet off grade on this side of the building, and then on this side it's 2 feet, just in this front portion. So we're going with some windows to allow light and visibility in. This existing opening here is an egress, and right now there's no door. The door's around the corner, so this is actually just a vestibule. What we're planning to do there is widen it up a bit and put a nice door in, kind of like we're doing on the Helena side with a little canopy. And this is just an egress door, so it's not really intended for entry. This one, however, is, and so we're doing this glass storefront system over here, and then that would be pretty much the access point off of Mason Street. And then we're doing some kind of wall washing lights in between along the way. So we're kind of trying to true up some of these bays. People have done some interesting additions to this thing over the years. So we're trying to simplify it a bit. These are the sections we talked about before. No change to that. And then we can talk a little bit about landscaping.
Kind of up to
Next one.
site plan is towards the front. Yeah, site plan.
Here?
Yeah, no. He's landscape plan.
Oh, this is what we saw last time, right? Okay. So last time we were here, Mr. Zink had asked for some information about the fence, so I wanted to just bring that to light, even though he's not here, just to kind of show you what's out there. It's kind of your standard square tube black iron fence, painted. It's got a few little spears on top in case anybody wants to climb over. But that's maybe anybody wants to check that out. So one of the things we've been looking at might help if we go to our landscape, or where's our site plan? Is it in here?
Yep.
It's existing? Yeah. Okay. So we were looking at this with the landscape architect and noticing that there's pockets and areas here. Like this is a large concrete train or loading dock that we're going to maintain. There's like this old concrete slab sitting here. There's some areas of the site here. There's some bike parking up against this spot, and there's just areas where this is striped, and so there aren't really any landscaping in there today. So we were looking at that as opportunities to get some more landscaping. And so we've come up with the idea of relocating the bike parking away from here and putting it back here. This is an existing sidewalk that sits here today, and then utilizing these little fingers where there's just black asphalt and getting some plantings in. Here's a new tree here. That would be a new tree, new plantings along here, and then getting some mass up on this corner of the building. So a couple new trees, landscaping. This would remain. A couple opportunities in here for landscaping. This is all ADA loading and pathway. And then redoing some of this landscape out in here and in the parkway. So, and then we didn't get the final information yet on the improvements on Helena. As you know, or don't know, I don't know, the Helena Street will be improved as part of the La Entrada project, and there's a whole design. As part of that project, they're doing those improvements, so we're not doing the improvements ourselves, but we're getting the information together so that we know what's showing up. But they're going to put a sidewalk across here, and I think that there's parallel park, right?
Yeah, parallel parking, but pulling that out a little bit, and then a couple of fingers in between.
Yeah, so it looks like they're going to have planter fingers with some trees and some parallel parking, and then a bump out, and a new sidewalk across the front. So that'll complete that, but that's not in our scope directly. That'll be coming down the line. Did we miss anything on the list?
I think you're good.
Okay.
And do we have any public comment on this item? All right, questions? Stephanie?
So this is showing the existing,
That's
the
what's-
existing parking.
Sorry, yes, that's what's there today.
Okay.
Exactly. In some form fashion.
And why are you keeping this concrete?
Turn your mic on.
Why are you choosing to keep that?
Actually, I think you're off now.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Why are
Are we
you
on?
choosing to keep the loading dock?
It's there. I mean, we could take it out and put it in a landfill, or we could just leave it and maybe use it for something for the tenants. I mean, we haven't really envisioned a lot of action for that. So
It's a railroad viewing platform.
Viewing.
it's kind of cool because it references what the building used to be
Sleeping
in
deck.
time, you know. it has these big doors right here too, so it's kind of, it could potentially be a nice spot to use as patio if the tenant wanted it.
That was it. My questions.
Keith?
Any plans for the existing paving in the parking lot to repave or do any enhancements?
Right now, it's all asphalt in pretty good condition, so we're just going to leave it. We haven't planned to do anything different with that.
Gary?
Last time we asked about whether you were going to paint or plaster or do any other exterior changes. Did you comment on that?
Yeah, we last time we talked that we weren't going to plaster the building, but we would try to patch some certain things. You know, it's a concrete building, so there's some spalling on this face that Dawn had brought up before, and I think we're just going to have to treat it as on a case by case on how to deal with it. But we don't intend to plaster the entire building.
Your building is not painted right now?
It's painted, yeah, it's painted, yeah. And we were definitely going to patch and repair and repaint.
Okay.
This is what the parking
That
lot
was that,
side
yeah.
looks like. So,
I think the sunlight's helping us.
yeah, I noticed that last time. Any more questions? What? Yeah. The canopy, I had a couple questions. The canopy design, you've drawn it as wood, but do you intend on using the wood, or did you say metal?
No, it's the way we're looking at it is the metal material comes up the door, and then it's a metal canopy with a wood fascia.
Oh, with the wood fascia.
We just haven't detailed it, but
Okay.
that's where we started.
And then go to the south elevation again. And I think this might just be a drafting issue, but south.
Mason Street.
It looked like you were lowering this header because right now it's pretty high, and on the photo it looks like it's about here. You weren't planning on lowering that, did you?
No, I think that's just a,
Okay.
yeah.
Because it looks kind of funny like that.
No, we wouldn't want to do that. That does look a little bit off. You're right.
And then the north elevation, just really quick, is where again?
That
Yeah,
way.
let's do that way. You have this is what you're calling reference north, which is the parking lot
That's parking lot side,
elevation.
yeah.
Is this the elevation that has all the electrical meters over here? Where are they, and where are they getting relocated? Because if you look on the photos,
Yeah, I saw those.
I was wondering where are those built into this whole thing? Oh, they're on the west elevation. Because you're calling
That's
this
on the-
north,
that's
so it was
Yeah,
confusing.
north's a little confusing. This is the train track.
This is the
side.
train track side, and which is
Back.
actually
This
your
elevation.
west on your drawings.
Correct.
And so
Should be north.
so since you're not proposing, I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, all that
Cool.
equipment, all that switch gear is all right in here.
And it's staying.
It's not drawn in there, but yes.
Did you see that, Gary? Okay, that's all the questions I have.
It's on the back of the building.
Comments? Oh, do you have any more questions?
One more question.
question?
Structurally, this building is seismically retrofitted already?
No, and it will be as part of our work.
Okay.
We're doing a shotcrete system on the interior wall
Okay.
to do the openings. So
Yeah. I would think do it as a big
Yeah.
open.
That's a
Yeah.
big project.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, on the roof deck. But
Yeah.
the building was built at like, I think it's 250 pounds per square foot loading because it was an old storage building. So it's literally a tank. So we do have to do some shotcrete work for the windows.
One more question. Do we have any updated landscape or design for the roof terrace?
Did we skip that? It's this one? Is that what we saw last time? Yeah. We didn't really look at this much last time. And the concept, here's the elevator tower and the two stair towers here. And these are just varying seating areas and pathways. We don't have a full plant list developed and all that. I don't know how you guys want to review landscape on this, given that Chris had to step
We
down.
don't know
but,
either.
we're still developing the concepts. One of the things we're looking at right now is how to get some shade up here because it is exposed, and we're talking with planning about whether we can have some trellis members and things kind of located around. So we're kind of developing those ideas, and then there's been some discussion on whether these stair towers get wrapped with something architectural. And one idea was to do sort of a green vining kind of concept on one of this would be like the Mason Street elevation, or do and have these little areas, these little canopies are kind of, that's not going to give much shade, but looking at other options, and then or wrap it in wood or something to kind of give these things a different presence up on the roof, leaving this alone because of all the cell towers on it. But
So far, but right now, you're not proposing anything.
no, because we got to make sure we can. Apparently, we're over height limit on this building, so there's certain things we can and cannot do up here. And trellises, if they're open and don't make square footage, could probably work. We just haven't gotten confirmation yet. So I'll probably have it tomorrow morning, unfortunately. But we'd come back with more information and then planting and all that and materials.
Okay.
I'm sure another staff comment with regard to this existing building is non-conforming. It's taller than the 45-foot height limit. And we wouldn't allow the mechanical equipment on top of the stair towers. The stair towers have to be the minimum acceptable by the building
Can you
code.
go to that elevation, Clay? I didn't realize that you were adding a.
That's new information to me. So we've met with Danny Cato and Allison Zalesk and went through that issue. And as long they're
So this is an ad.
this isn't where are we? This is the train side. This is an ad. An ad.
Okay. I didn't
This
know.
is-
Does anybody else know about that?
This is
There for a second.
this
Oh,
is
yeah.
existing and getting
one is.
a bit taller, and that's existing.
existing.
So you can see this is here. It's just getting a little taller, and that one's new because we need a second means of egress.
So you didn't know
And
about that.
our
either?
discussions with Danny Cato and Allison DeBusk was as long as this was not enclosed, it didn't count as habitable space and thereby allowed. So we could have a parapet with mechanical units inside of it if it's open to the sky.
And
we
be over
went-
the height limit.
We
The
went
whole,
through
the whole
this.
building, the body of the building is over the height
Here's the
limit.
height limit right here. It's this line right here.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you guys decide that. I mean, I'll let you work that out with.
Yeah, I thought we had it all worked out. This is new information, so
Yeah.
We'll let you
changes
continue
week
to
by
work it
week.
out.
Also, the
I meet
floor-
with them in the morning, so I'll get it clear.
Okay.
The new, the additional new stair tower can't be any larger in plan view than required by code. For example, the landing, because we don't want to have anything that we could possibly consider to be floor area up there. So the height can increase, and the floor plan has to be as small as possible, allowed by code.
And again, we went through this with Danny and Allison already before even submitting to ABR. So hopefully we'll work that out with them tomorrow
Okay.
and see if they need us to change anything.
On the, let's see, this is west, so this is north. I just wanted to see what this looks like from that end, since I wasn't thinking it was new, like the north elevation. Oh, it's in line with the plaster. I didn't realize that before. Okay. Comments? Stephanie, are you ready?
Yeah. Overall, I think the project is fine. I appreciate the landscape changes to the parking lot. The only comment I have with regards to the building is the relationship to the corner or the windows closest to the corners of the building being a little too close to the corners, and I don't mind the size of all the other windows in the middle, but this proportion at the corners bothers me, being too close to the corners, and would like to see the windows at the corners of the building decreased in size, or maybe width. That's it.
Thanks, Stephanie. Keith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the additional landscape and articulation of the entries with the canopies and that's are all good moves. Still would like to see a little more articulation or projections on, particularly I think it's the south elevation. Again, with the kind of vocabulary that you got going with the canopies, it seems like that could happen, but that's kind of a big blank expanse, I guess. Would like to see the development of what happens on the roof terrace, and if there are any trellises and additional structures up there, and you know, obviously get this issue with the height of the towers resolved and the mechanical equipment placement, because that could affect the roof terrace and gardens. So last thing, I think it would be nice if there were some opportunities to do some enhancement in the paving of the parking lot, rather than just keeping all the existing asphalt. I don't know if there's what opportunities there might be there, but I think that would be encouraged. So I think it's heading in the right direction. I'd like to see these kind of outstanding issues get resolved so we can pin down what the results are design-wise. But like I said, I think it's moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Keith. Gary?
Yeah, I think the roof deck is a really neat feature, and I appreciate the openings, the keeping the door style the same on the metal iron doors. I think that's kind of a neat add, but I'm still not there on both the amount of fenestration and basically the design. It's a really large building, and if we were to look at, for instance, the east elevation, and we're looking at the hierarchy of the windows and how they don't relate to how this particular portion of the building has different hierarchy, and yet the windows are keeping the same pattern. And I think that somehow this building needs a little bit more, something refined to it. I'm also seeing some design in the photos, and I don't know if something was removed on this, but I was looking at, let me grab the photo. I was looking at the top portions, and I was wondering wondering about these particular
right
treatments
there.
right here. Well, they're not really shown right there, these treatments. And I was wondering if either there was something removed at one point here, or it was just put at that point. And I was wondering what the history is behind this building, if there was something.
These two things right here are cell towers. Those were added.
Is that what they are?
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's
those were
what-
added on after the fact?
I think there's a line missing on the drawing. These should be projected. That's what you're saying, Gary. They're
So
not
these,
showing us
these two
projections.
items right here were added on with a permit as cell towers. On all four
all the way
sides.
around that thing.
Okay. Well, that because this
Yeah.
looks a little different than this looks a
saying-
little different than the rest of the building is what I was seeing. But
We didn't do that.
I understand that. But I would agree with the dimension here between the walls, and also I would like to see. I mean, this is my opinion that some of these windows, I believe it's on the north elevation, which is the other one. I was noticing that they didn't seem to always be centered on these little column areas. There seems to be some sort of variation in between there. And I'd like it, the windows are all new, so I'd like to see it have at least some sort of attachment to the existing building, their orientation.
The just a point of clarification. The windows are centered in the structural bays, and I don't know that these were actually. They
There
probably
or not?
no, they're there, but they probably should have been installed over the structural bays, but they might
they
not
were.
have been when they did the parapet. So we'll check that and see. But I know the windows are centered in the structural bays because
Because that's where they need to go.
we need to do that. I don't know that these were
At the-
constructed at the top of the column as you would think they might be, and
Which I
therefore it would look off in the elevation. But we'll double check that.
Okay.
There's a lot of weird things on these on the parapet itself. There's different heights and different things going on. So
That's a subtlety
Sorry.
that's very hard to detect other than when you're looking at the elevations straight on.
Well, I think when you're looking at elevation straight on, but I think when we're looking at this building with the monotony of the how the windows are separated, I think it does, and it should have some sort of affirmation to how the building is. That's how I see it, and I still think that maybe the 8.5 feet. Although I think it would be really cool from the inside to have these nice windows.
oh, it's amazing up there.
But I also think from the outside I think it looks pretty, I think they're pretty large for this building. So I don't know. I might stand alone,
Would the board like
on
to
that, but
comment on whether we keep these items? I mean, I don't.
Let Gary finish his comments, and I'm going to make some. I'm kind of the same opinion, Clay, that needs to be looked at, whether you relocate these little extensions so that they work with the windows, or that you move the windows to work with them. But even though you're saying that your windows have to be centered in the structural bays, I'm not seeing how that necessarily has to be. If you wanted to shift these windows slightly over to be centered in there, or move these one way or the other. And I think that, and I do agree with Stephanie that that these dimensions are a little tight for this type of construction with the concrete building and kind of piercing the concrete building with openings. It's looking more like a detail for a steel building instead. So I would look at when you look at that, and based on the other comments that I'm hearing with Gary's comment and Stephanie's, and I also, as much as I love light, and I want the windows to be really large, just because of that fact that they're too close to the corners, and because they're not working with these bays, that they might want to be just slightly smaller. That's one comment. I think I had one more, and that is, I kind of like the projecting kind of cantilevered detail up here that's going on. To me, it's just a nice detail. But if you're going to add a tower like this, it seems like it's an opportunity to do something else with that. Maybe along those lines, just some way to tie it in, just an extension up and in line with the existing plaster. I don't know. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but it just seems like an opportunity to unify the design in just another way. Other than that, I think it's a nice project. So just a little further refinement of the windows. And does anybody want to craft a motion?
I'll take a stab at it. Ask the applicant, would you prefer a 2-week continuance? Okay. So this would be a 2-week continuance back to full board with the following comments. Applicant is to study and refine the placement of the windows in relationship to the adjacent parapet elements and adjust one or the other to have a more purposeful relationship. Specifically study the existing mass at the corners where the new windows are placed. Applicant is to resolve the outstanding zoning issues with staff, specifically the heights and placement of mechanical equipment and the use of trellises or additional structures on the roof. Applicants encouraged to study additional opportunities for enhanced paving in the existing parking lot. Some board members feel that there's still opportunities for some additional projections and articulation of the facade, particularly the south elevation.
All right. That was everything on my list, too. Does anybody want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Stephanie. Any further discussion? Gary, any? No?
No, well, I just think that, I think you got it, but I just wanted to also say that the east elevation on the, I believe it's the Mason Street elevation, is that correct? Just to study the articulation and the architecture between that. So I think these windows could actually be larger than the ones next to them. Does that make sense?
I think we're kind of confused about the orientation because we all consider Mason Street as being the south.
Should be the south.
So your motion referred to the south elevation. Did you mean that Mason Street elevation?
I meant the south elevation.
Okay. You meant what you
As
said?
labeled.
As exists.
So
Okay, good.
he did, right. He meant south, which is south, and that's the elevation you're concerned about as well.
Because
Right.
it's labeled as east.
I know, it's labeled as east.
incorrectly.
I think we're all on the same page on that. Well, now you're telling us. Just kidding. Yeah, but I think we covered that in the motion as well.
I think that was covered on the motion. I was misunderstanding. Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries. Thanks. Looks good. It's going to be cool. Okay. We're right on time with, so far, with item number 2, 1711 and 1713 Loma Street. So this is a continued item. We last saw this on January 23rd. There are nine comments from the last meeting. Do you want to go over them one by one instead of me reviewing them? Do you want to do that? Or do you have an additional?
I was just going to start from the front, and if you want to, can you hand me that? Or you can.
Well, I can. If you want to, just go ahead and I'll just
Okay.
cross them off as you address them.
All right. Well, we did keep the lap siding. That was one of the issues that was being addressed. We also kept the Dutch gables in the front.
Why don't you show us as you go through
Okay.
them, so that everybody that's watching at home gets to see.
Okay. That's always fun. Let's do the elevations then. Sorry, just looking for the elevation. Getting close. Where's the last one? There we go. That way. Okay, so here's our new design. So we kept in the front the Dutch gables that was recommended. We've kept the large part of the house as lap siding. The only stuccoed area will be around the garages and on the sides, which is currently stuccoed on the east and west side. We improved our front design by adding a gate. Instead of before, there was a slatted fence, kind of, so we've put some gates. They're really false gates. They hide 2 bathroom windows that are in the front of the house, along with an electrical panel and a gas meter. We were initially going to move the electrical panel to the west side of the house. I'm trying to get my bearings here. Let's see, where are we? So here is west, am I correct?
I think west is this
Okay,
is
west is here. Okay.
Oh, you're doing
Sorry,
this.
I'm just saying we were going to move the electrical panel from here over to the side. We're no longer doing that. We're just moving the riser, not the panel. Because right now, all the electrical wires go straight across the house right to here. So let's see what else in the front. The front, we are removing the large fences still. There are 3 large fences. We have put up a shorter fence on either side with a stairwell on both the east and west sides. Currently, there's a ramp. And, sorry, it's hard to look upside down. So we've put up a stairwell with a larger landing on this side. Currently, the ramp heads up, and the client who lives in this side has to make a very tight turn here. So given that we are hoping to have more access to our garages, he wants a little bit more room for bringing up groceries from them. So we've made the landing here with some stairs. We've included our railing now on both sides. We've kind of cleaned up the lines here a little bit. And then it will be on the back and be the same. It's a very understated railing, simple in design, so that the view can be maintained on the south side. Okay,
It's a wrought iron railing.
It's a wrought iron. It is. We wanted to hold on to the deck. This was up for debate last time when I was here, whether or not having one long linear deck versus 2 short ones. The client would really like to keep one long linear for several reasons, mostly that these windows are going from 7 feet wide to 10 feet so that he has more view. And we need a little bit more space because of that. Also, there is some discussion for the future of his life to not have a tenant, and he would like to have one long deck in the front. So let's see, then the other issue was, I just went through modification committee last week. We had approved, the other thing to the front is we've added an arbor. Not only an arbor around the gate that kind of holds the gates in, but also some window arbors to look a lot more compatible with the neighborhood. Before, we just had plain windows that were, didn't have an arbor. I'm hoping to trellis this and have vines come up and over the windows a bit. These windows, the egress issue was addressed. These are the same size, but they are French casements. So they open this way. They have no center stile in them. So those are now French casements. So let's see. So then let's go down the driveway and into the back. So the other large issue was the open space area for the backyard. And I went through modification committee. They came out, looked at the turn radius for a car trying to get into the garage. I also went to transportation where they used their template to show what would work in terms of getting into the garage. And we've made the open space, let me go to that sheet, as large as possible given the necessary requirements for trying to get the cars into the garage. That will show here. Yeah. Also good. So what we've done is we had, forgive me, I'm forgetting what we had here before, but this was approved by the modification committee by staff. Basically, the turn radius, we come in, we're removing these 45-degree planter beds and putting up a retaining wall. It's literally, this wall is at 18 feet and the retaining wall is at 21. So we have 3 feet between the old wall, which we are keeping, and then just putting a new retaining wall up 3 feet north of it. And so now at least this garage that's accessible here can get in without doing 2 turns. These, of course, still it's required to do either a back in like this or a double turn to get in, but they're still a little bit better accessible because of this distance. Landscaping. So what we did was we presented a landscape plan. One of the issues, I think I'll look. Let's go back. Also fence detail. We have a fence detail which was requested. So landscaping, the owner has great plans to retire and travel, so basically a perennial garden down here, no grass, all on drip, everything's on drip. Mostly, there's a hedge here, not on his property, so this is a very shaded area, so there's a few camellias in here and a cestrum and some other happily shaded plants. And then in between the retaining wall and the current wall, the stone wall, there will be lavender and rosemary. I think I also put in, I can't remember what else I put in there, but basically, again, mostly perennials. Some draping. I'd like the rosemary to trail and drape down the wall a bit. And then in the front, along here, this also was an addition in terms of landscaping. I had always wanted this, but we're putting in a path that this currently is cement. And we're going to rip it out as well as everything else and put in a really nice design. These are not railroad ties, but like a treated, clear wood that has some stepping stones in between coming up to here, and this will all be planted with some thyme. It's a very shaded place. And then come up here and I put in, this we don't have a lot of choice because this is the parkway. And I've gone to the city park department to find out what I could plant there. It was very minimal. Has to be low, can only be 8 inches high. And so we just ended up doing a ground cover and another suggested low water plant in here. And that will be on drip too. And then here we've just planted some jasmine. This is shaded. This is north side, and the house roof line keeps this fairly shaded. So these are all shade plants, mostly camellia, jasmine, a little bit of pittosporum silversheen, some westringia, and that's about it. And then pockets. Sorry, we did do pockets. We already have pockets, which I'm sorry they weren't on the plans the last time. There are 2 pockets here that have beautiful trumpet vines coming up them. It does have a trumpet vine and some creeping fig, but we're going to remove the creeping fig and just have trumpet vine here, trumpet vine in between the garages, and a trumpet vine on the front of the house on the west side going up and over the arbor. And then over here, these 2 will be, again, I think a pittosporum silver sheen, something tall that I can get a little bit tall but airy still and light.
While we're on this page, where's that arbor that you've drawn on the elevation?
You know, the arbor shows best. The gate is right here. The arbor shows best on, not that, but, you know what? I think it's on the...
It shows on the elevation next to the window, but I couldn't see it on plan.
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. Let me look back a little bit because we got it. I know we have a detail for it. I know that we've done that. Let's see if we can find it. I'm sorry, it used to be on this one, and so I'm kind of surprised. Thank you. I knew it was on there. Thank you. There it is.
Where is it?
It's right here. It's right here is the arbor. It's forward because, again, we're leaving the electric meter is here right now, and it's very costly to relocate. Relocating the riser is much less expensive.
I'm talking about this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. That one is just a trellis. That's just a trellis going up the side.
I know.
of the
Where is it
log.
in plan?
It is. Sorry, I guess it's not on here.
No, that's the trellis over the window.
That's the window trellis, so it should be right here.
So it's just a screen. It's mounted to the wall of the house.
Yes,
Okay.
just a mounted trellis
Okay.
with a trumpet vine going up the side of it, and then, you know, hopefully getting them long enough to drape over the windows.
Do you want to say anything else in your presentation?
Did I?
I think you covered everything. Yeah.
Okay,
All the items.
I think that's it.
All right. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item? No. Okay. Questions? Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few questions on the landscape. You have labeled some of the, especially in the front, the flagstone stepping stones.
Yes.
Are those with planted joints? Are they on a slab?
They were going to be planted joints, not on a slab.
Okay.
He has quite a bit of flagstone in the back that's old from the property, so we're going to pull it forward. And I'd like to just plant thyme or something in between.
Okay.
And pretty fully planted. I would like every area. And it's an easy spot because of it facing north. I think we can get a lot growing in between without much need for water.
And then in the back, there's a path shown in the. Is that existing or is that new?
That is not existing. It's new, and it would just be composite. I don't think we'd like a ground, something very simple. Again, he doesn't want a lot of maintenance.
Like a
at all.
decomposed granite?
Yeah, decomposed granite. Something just very simple.
Okay. And then there's a couple areas in that back, especially sort of where the number 10 is.
Right here.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, are there spaces left open, or?
There are spaces left open. There is a hedge here currently, and I don't know if I'll leave the spaces open. I'm not one to leave much space open, but I felt like it was getting pretty full, and that maybe this would be, he doesn't want any, this is not an area that's used very much by anybody. It's kind of, since it's sloped down and there's a hedge here and a fence there and a hedge there, it's not that visible to view or anything else. So I was just planning on just simply putting perennials in. And do you feel like I should add some?
Well, we'll address those in comments. Yeah. Just a few additional small questions. The number 17s on the back balconies, are those meant to go in pots
Okay.
and then be trained up over the arbor?
Those are, sorry, that's not correct. Those are the pockets that are underneath the balcony
Oh,
that are on the, in between the garages.
oh, I see. Okay. So you'll train those up and over the garage?
Yes, train them up and over the garage, for sure, wire it.
Okay, and then the, back to the front yard again,
Okay.
the middle flagstone path.
Yes.
Does that lead somewhere?
You know what, it has to, we need something there because the meters are back behind there. So we need to keep it free and open to the gates. The gates will be opening towards you, and the only people that should be back there is the gas reader and the
Okay.
electric reader, which now we have one of those meters that we don't.
Smart reader.
Yeah, a smart read. So.
Okay, and you may have said this, but what did that screen become as far as the height and material? I may have missed it. but-
It's on the elevation.
Yeah, it's gates, and they're. I had purchased them, believe it or not, before I came in the last time, and I ended up not using them, and then was sorry I didn't do so. Yeah, elevations are. So yeah, if you look at the front, they're old antique gates,
Okay, I was curious about the height.
and they're 7 feet.
Okay, great. And that's all I have for questions.
Thanks, Chris. Gary?
Yeah, my question was the same thing. They're gates, but what are they made of?
They are teak.
Oh, they're wood.
Yeah, they're wood.
Okay.
And did you have the color chips with you?
I left them. They're here.
Okay.
Oh, those are the old ones. Do you have the new? They were on a white sheet. I mean, they're really close to this. They didn't change much. They were on a regular, there's 2 white sheets. Dawn might have them on a, yeah, they're there. They're there. That's. So they're very close. He likes grays. So what was happening? Should I speak? Am I good?
I just wanted to see that match up the colors.
Yeah, did you need to add anything to that, except for we found the colors, so that's good?
No. This is just the body of the house.
Okay.
And then this is the stucco. This will be the railing, and the gate will have this element on it. And then this is the windows, the new windows and doors that are aluminum clad and wood interior.
More questions? Kirk?
No, Chair. So I'm just curious, last time I believe the wrought iron gates were further back, and now you
Yes.
push them forward. Why you did that?
Yes, the reason was to not have to move the electrical panel. The electrical panel is very close. If I look at,
You can't put it behind the electrical panel?
then the electrical panel is this huge eyesore. It sticks out. It's not good at all. Has tons of wires.
More questions? Okay. Keith? Stephanie?
Are the windows behind the gates,
Yes.
are they being changed out too?
There is currently on the owner's side a garden
Turn your mic
window
on.
that has been fully tiled, and it's is a garden window, and it was just done a few years ago, so no. He'd like to not change that out. That's on the west side,
On
the
here?
right side. Yep. So that one will not be changed.
Okay.
Yes, that's a garden window, and the
Yeah,
gates will go above it, and then this will be changed.
Okay.
Oh,
All the windows are being changed out?
all the windows are being changed out to aluminum clad exterior, wood interior.
And your gutters and downspouts, are they spilling out onto the walkway at the front?
They are not. There is a storm drain. Let's see, I think that is on. We had the storm drain plan done. It's over here. Here it is. So what's happening are the gutters, they come out to a drain pipe that runs along the front of the property, right by the house, so right by the front windows. It will be underground. And it will come out and have an elbow and go under the driveway now. And then it will come down here. And then there's a basin here now that will be the catch.
Let's see. I had one more question. That sandstone base, is that existing or new?
It is not existing currently.
That's new.
That's new.
Which sandstone base?
That sandstone
here.
base on the front, and it's at the building. It's not out at the street level.
Yeah, it's not at the street level because this is
right.
The sandstone,
16.
you're talking about the flagstone driveway?
No. This
No.
base right here
This.
at the front elevation.
Oh, I'm sorry. So where are you talking?
That front elevation.
She's
that's
talking
on the
about
Oh.
something completely different.
Oh, you are. Sorry, I misunderstood. So you're talking about the stones?
Yeah.
The
That base.
planter?
raised
That's a-
sandstone planter.
Yes, that's a planter. So the front view, it's just a planter. If you look at,
It's on the landscape
yeah,
plan?
yeah, I think we can see it much better. It's where 29 and 21 are, where the jasmine is. It's just like a 18-inch or 2-foot wide planter.
Oh, it's
and the
out
stone,
here.
Yes,
Okay.
it's out there.
Okay. That's it. No more questions.
I had a couple. You answered the screen. Are you replacing all the windows? I forgot what you said.
Yes, and I'm
You are.
sorry I did not mention
Because
that. in the beginning.
I was noticing that like this is a slider and that's got a nice detail there and
This is, let's go to the current back elevation. This had to be egress, the back pop-out room, even though it's not considered a bedroom, because it could possibly have, so it's here, it could possibly have a bed put in it. That's what I was told by building and safety, even though it has no closet and it's the tiniest room on the face of the earth. Literally, this one is 6.5 feet wide. It barely would fit a bed. Anyway, it has to be egress, so the client really wants view out this window because he does work in here and do other things. So he asked to not have anything on, any lights or anything put on the windows.
So what kind of window is it?
And leave them. It is a 3-foot wide, so 3 foot by 40 casement, and it just is a casement.
A huge casement window.
And it's an egress. It fits the egress requirements because of its size.
Okay. And then the flagstone that's already in the open yard, you're going to take that out and replace it with the DG?
It has been in. It has long removed.
Oh,
a
really?
long while it was, and just stacked up.
So
and
these are old
piled.
photos?
They are. Oh, sorry. Yes, they are old photos.
Okay.
And now it's just all stacked in a big pile.
Okay.
Okay. Comments? Gary, are you ready to make comments?
Actually, I think it's okay. I don't mind any comments.
All right. Kirk?
Madam Chair, I just have one comment. I think really in terms of public impact, because the front of the units are so close to the street, that it is really unfortunate to put that new middle gate right flush with those front walls. And I think it should be moved back and then some other solution found for enclosing just a small cabinet or something for the electrical panel as opposed to big doors
Moving it.
blocking. Yeah.
So doghouse it in some way.
Yeah, I think it could be tastefully done with, wood siding, a little wood cabinet that still leaves the meter exposed.
I'm having a hard time
I know,
maneuvering through
there's
these
so
drawings. I don't know why. Can't find anything I'm looking for.
That's my only comment.
I was looking for the plan to illustrate that on the camera.
So here.
That's what you're talking about?
To move this back.
Yes, just to gain, some additional
This is where the meters are.
relief and articulation of those front walls and a little bit more landscaping in the front. So I think it was moved back like 3 or 4 feet.
It would be right where the electrical meters are.
Or then just behind them, let's say.
You mean just in front of them or just behind
No,
them?
behind
Just
them.
behind them.
So would you rather not have a gate there? There's no windows there, right?
They want
No.
the gates to hide the meters, so it doesn't do any good to have the
Yeah.
gates if you're not
Is
going
that
to.
the purpose of the gate?
It's to hide the meters and to give privacy to the bathroom windows,
Well,
which
that's
are
what I
right
thought it was
there.
privacy. It was a
Yes,
privacy
but
thing.
it's to hide the meters to this one is really huge. It's a double meter. It's not a single because it's 2 units. So it's a good 2.5 feet wide by this, and it sticks out a good with the meter. It's an older one, so it's a good. It sticks out a lot.
Okay.
It would have the doghouse would have to be really large around it.
You still feel the same way about that comment?
I do.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Keith?
I agree with Kirk's comments, and other than that, I think it's probably ready to move on.
Okay. Stephanie?
I agree with that as well, and the gates, this gate's shorter too, back there. I mean, but I'm sure they're beautiful gates that you are just smaller. Lower for privacy.
They don't have to be that tall for the privacy that you're seeking, I think. And I think that people might mistake them for a gate, the entry to the building if they look like the entry to the building as you have them now. So I agree with other board members' comments on those, moving them back for some relief on that street elevation. That's it.
Chris?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. As far as the landscape goes, overall, I think there's a lot of missing information, and I would recommend getting either a landscape architect or a landscape designer involved. And there's a few things that I'll go through here. And basically what we don't have on these plans are, you have a plant list, but it's not detailed enough. We need, for example, what type of cassia are you going to use? What type of coreopsis? We need the genus and the species name, along with the size that you're proposing, the quantities, and notes and details for planting, and you need an irrigation plan, which we don't have in this set. In the backyard, there's some kind of open space, and we talked a little bit about that, but the symbols in general don't reflect the size of the plant that you're proposing. So, I would go back through those and enlarge if you're going to plant a tree, make it a larger circle, and et cetera, et cetera. You also have sort of some sun-loving plants in the shade, like the cannas in the shade of the hedge. And also the vines on either side of the garage may end up in the shade, and it's going to be a maintenance nightmare, especially with trumpet vine. To keep it that small, you might want to consider maybe an upright plant instead, so you're not having to battle back that vine there. So overall, I think you need, basically a restudy of the things that I just mentioned. we're going to need, obviously, irrigation plan, as I said, and details for the DG path, and the stone wall out front is shown as just a line on the plan. We need, I don't know how thick that is, or if that's a CMU with a sandstone face, or if it's dry stack stone of some sort. So I think some re-examination needs to take place and more detail.
Thanks, Chris. I just had one comment about the gate, and I just think it's just a little too tall, and and just a little too close, and because it's supposed to screen the meters, it's not going to really work for that purpose. So I'm kind of on that same side of the camp on that one, with the gate not being, this particular gate at that size not being appropriate for that part of the project. But otherwise, I think it's great. I think the project looks really good, and this project, it's here for final review. However, we know the landscaping's not ready for final review. With the removal of the gates, the detailing is here. Does anybody feel that the project is ready for final approval? And if they do, then I would entertain a motion.
Well, this project doesn't have a project design approval yet either, so you could
Right,
take
it could
that
be
far.
just project design approval, or it could be project design approval and final approval with the landscaping to return, whatever anybody thinks is appropriate.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion for project design approval to return on the consent calendar for additional information related to landscaping, plant sizes, quantities, et cetera, and also a restudy of some of the plant choices to accommodate existing shaded conditions, as well as seeing architectural detailing on the arbor and retaining wall, the new retaining wall at the back, and the I saw there was a balcony around detail.
There was an arbor detail. Did you see that, Kirk?
None.
That one?
Oh, okay, so that's fine, cancel that. And the motion would also include a restudy of the gates. My own feeling is that the height is not a problem, but that the location is, and that the gate should be moved back behind the electrical meters, and another solution should be found for masking the electrical panels.
Landscaping-wise, maybe. Vines, training, something like that. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Kirk? All right. Seconder?
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any more discussion items? Chris, are you okay with the wording, or do you want it to say something like complete landscape plan and irrigation plan, something like that?
It sounded like Kirk got most of it, but I guess just as a review from my notes here, I have to include plant genus and species, sizes and quantities you mentioned, but also notes and details for planting and irrigation and hardscape.
You can add that to the motion.
Can I speak yet?
Madam Chair?
Not yet. Yeah, Gary?
Yeah, under discussion, if you are going to remove those gates, which I think is a good move, looking at the elevation, she did mention that the windows were going to stay, like the garden window was going to stay. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
so define it to remove that if needs redoing.
It looks a little odd.
We just did.
It looks a little odd if you look at that front elevation. I think you're replacing all the other windows. The other windows are going to be clad blue and so forth, and then we're going to have at the front elevation one glass,
Which one is that?
If you look at these two windows on that
Yeah,
first picture,
I see what you're getting at.
one has a garden window in it, and then one doesn't.
To keep those Same
that's,
gate, so
and
keep it
that's
high.
the gate would
To hide
hide
those
that
windows,
architecture, but now we're celebrating it, and I don't think it's something to celebrate. I understand your motion. Your motion asks for it to move back,
Yeah.
but I agree with Don that the gates are too tall, and it doesn't. The gates that are proposed, I don't think really looks well with the architecture. I didn't quite understand it, but with the two separate buildings and then a gate just to hide those windows, I think it doesn't.
Well, the garden window would disappear if there was a different screen proposed, right?
If there was something proposed.
Right. So Kirk's motion stated to re-study the location of the proposed gates, maybe something in there that would catch just in more general that area.
All right.
To resolve that.
Well, I feel comfortable.
You know,
I feel comfortable that there's been discussion about it. So the architect knows.
Yeah. Do you get it?
I
What
do,
were-
though I'm confused now by lower or high, because high does
Hide the windows
hide
that
the
aren't being
windows,
changed.
Yeah.
is really
So-
costly for clients.
Yeah, and I think that what I'm hearing from everybody is, and I guess I'm not opposed necessarily to the height. I think the height bothered me because it was so close to the front
Yes.
of the
I
structure. So,
understand.
just I think that what you're hearing from the board is that if you want to keep that window that's
Right.
not the same as all the other windows, then something has to hide it.
Right.
Is kind of what I'm hearing everybody. No?
Well, I don't know if we need to add anything to the
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
If the gates are left in and they're moved back, I think then the window issue is a moot point, so.
Yeah.
And some potted plants in the front will also change the way the gates look in terms of the height.
Okay, any more? Did you get to say what you wanted to say?
The only thing I'm a little confused by
Really quickly.
Is in terms of landscaping and hiring a landscape architect, it's very, very costly. And we're trying to do a project, make it look a lot better than it does currently. And that's a big undertaking and a lot of money to spend. And I'm wishing we could just plant and enjoy the beauty of Santa Barbara. And
I don't think the motion stated that you needed to hire a landscape architect.
Okay.
I made a suggestion too,
Okay.
and then
All
a
right.
lot of comments if you were
Okay.
going to continue
All
on
right.
your own.
All right, I got it.
Well, we wouldn't make that suggestion unless you returned the next time and didn't have a complete landscape plan.
I got it. Okay.
Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Oops, that's yours. There's-
All right.
I
Go
think
ahead, Gary.
that's
What?
yours, all yours.
We're on to item number 3, 1924 Emerson Avenue. Just a little bit behind.
You want to come up? May as well. Hi. I guess we're going to do this without staff, so I'll explain. We're actually here. Brian Cornell, Jonathan Leach, Lisa Lyles. Jonathan is actually the neighbor of 1924 Emerson, Ken Jacobson, who is our client. So Jonathan's house is not shown completely here, but it's right in this location. This, in fact, is looking from Emerson at Jonathan's house, and you can see just the edge of 1924. This is a turn-of-the-century Italianate. It's really a beautiful little house that our client, Ken Jacobson, is restoring. And in fact, you all some time ago reviewed an addition or a second residence that's on this parcel, and it's almost complete. So it sits back here in the back of the property. And what you are reviewing today are walls, or requests that we have for modification for walls that exceed 8 feet on the property line that is contiguous with Jonathan's parcel, and then with the property line, the property that is to the east. This is a shot looking basically looking across this old stone wall. You can see there's beautiful stonework that Ken has been replicating throughout the site, and it shows the old hedge that used to be in this location. We were going to replace this with an 8-foot fence, but Jonathan and Ken got to talking, and it was decided that actually a concrete wall would be more desirable for the properties. So what is the condition today is this wall, which has been built, and it turns out exceeds the 8 feet. From, actually you have a shot, Lisa, over there. This is one photo from Jonathan's property where you can see the edge. This would be kind of looking back to the northeast. You can see that wall. So that would be looking back in this direction. And then the one from Jonathan's property. So this gives you an idea of what Jonathan is looking at. And one of the issues associated with this and why Jonathan is here and why we want to keep this wall the height that it is the old Italianate. I really don't have a good photo of it, but in fact, we have a shot from the inside. There's a step up to a stair landing that is a bay window that looks directly out. We may have that. No, this is the opposite elevation, but this is that bay window. So when you're standing on that stair landing, you can see that you begin to sort of look down onto the property. So for privacy, the wall height becomes very important. On the other side, from Jonathan's, this is the condition, basically. There's that addition, and then you can see the walls that are happening on this other side. We sort of have the same condition, and there's a letter in the record. This neighbor supports the wall height the way it is now as well. And there's just some portions of this that exceed the 8 feet, but you can see that it's stepped down, and I actually have recommended that this wall stay the concrete because it has a beautiful patina. You can kind of see it even from Jonathan's side. It kind of has a really nice texture, and it almost goes away as opposed to being plastered or anything like that. I did a quick sketch of how this all looks at the end of the day. You can see in, I think, this photo, you can just sort of see the trunks. But there are some palms, there are some king palms on the property now that are going to be relocated to help sort of mitigate that wall height and located in this area. And all of this stonework is in the process of being redone. In fact, this garage is not under construction yet, but it is part of the 1924 Emerson site and will be constructed shortly, which kind of matches Jonathan's garage and a lot of the garages in that neighborhood. So again, we're really here hopefully to get your support for these walls as you see them here to go forward to the modification hearing officer. And Jonathan, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add that I may have forgotten or that would be important here.
Well, I think it's important to look at the recent history of the property. And by recent, I mean over the last 30 years. We purchased the property about 14 years ago, and the owner previous to the Jacobsons, very nice couple, elderly at the point where they moved into a convalescent home, their children sold it off. Well, Johnny was a general contractor, and he really had no hesitation about adding on to the home. And over his 45 years of ownership of that property, there were a number of bastardizations of that structure that occurred. And when the property went up for sale, most of the neighbors assumed that whoever bought it would scrape it clean and we'd wind up with 4 condominium units on it. We were very pleasantly surprised that this was a family that really appreciated and was willing to restore the architecture on the site and, in fact, to enhance it from an overgrown condition where the house had been allowed to dilapidate, where the grounds were overgrown, where there was not a sense of the real elegance of the property. They've spent the last 3 years painstakingly getting the vegetation back into a beautiful state, cleaning up all the specimen oak trees, providing these stone walls that are, as Brian said, very Italianate. One of the sacrifices that they made in doing that preservation is this house is essentially on the property line. That's the condition that it was constructed at the turn of the century. Our house was built in 1915. They've always been 15 feet apart. The original solution to that was a high hedge to give us both our privacy. And you can see in the original photo that what we've done is essentially replace that hedge with a stone wall. The hedge was nice. It was not as effective in drainage control. It was not as effective in keeping our dogs in where they belonged on our respective properties. And when it was trimmed, you could basically see right through the trunks. So in having that discussion with the Jacobsons, we felt like a permanent concrete wall was a vast improvement over the maintenance issue that was associated with the hedge. And the sacrifice of them having this house, keeping it, enhancing it, preserving it, is that they're basically looking in all of our windows. If you walk now in our home and look out each one of our windows, you have a wall that is of the same height from each one of our rooms. The difference between our property and the neighboring property to the east is our living space, our house, is on one continuous elevation. From the very back of our yard out to the end of our rooftop garden area,
which is this,
is all one elevation. And so for us, it makes sense to have one elevation wall that is continuous along that entire property line. And in fact, the height of the wall matches the height of our historic retaining wall between the house level and our rear yard level, which is raised up about 8.5 feet to an area that, if you look today, appears as though this wall has always been there. So from our perspective, we love the design. We are supportive of all the efforts that our neighbors have made to enhance this property, and certainly we would urge you to support the wall that has the configuration now.
Okay. Is that it?
I think that's it. I think just again, I want to, the pitch for the concrete is that they were discussing plastering it, and it just, the nature of the site, I think you can kind of really get the feel from this photo, is the concrete just has a beautiful patina and is going to go away, and the discussion is planting this with creeping fig and other things that will really, I think, make it totally disappear. But that's why it is the concrete that we show here. And it's certainly, the Riviera is full of anomalies. Jonathan actually wrote the modification letter, and in that letter he shows a number of examples of walls and conditions that are like this in and around the neighborhood. So,
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Brian, you focused on this wall, but would you mind addressing the other items in our project descriptions, kind of a miscellany of different things for you to look at?
let me look at the this agenda to help me out. So I know that there was some issue with, let's see.
It says concrete wall with sandstone cap, changes
which is
to
what we've
fences.
looked at.
Changes to fences.
Well, the fence, this was going to be a fence. I'm not sure if that's what it's talking about. There is an issue after going out there with staff about the wall that is behind the property here. Lisa, you have a photograph of that, but basically that is in the process of being worked out with the neighbor. So it's really, we're not going to apply for a mod for this, but this is the fence looking into the back property here. So we're either going to adjust the grade here or cut this fence down. And again, that's sort of in a process. So that really isn't in your purview. And then air conditioning units, we do have an air conditioning unit here that's outside of the setback. And then we have another one that is right here. And I think the real issue there is just that they be, properly, that they meet the sound conditions, but these are just small little residential condensing
Do you have a
units.
photo of this area?
I don't have a photo of that, unfortunately.
Because it's right here, but it's forward of that.
Yeah.
Is this existing? What is that?
That is, well, it's built, yes, it is built.
What is it?
This is just a little low. That's basically, this condition right here. As you can see, this little wall.
Oh, it's not high. It doesn't screen it. Okay.
No.
Okay, I think that covers it, right, Brian?
Yeah.
All those things?
Yeah.
We have,
And these are not obviously subject to mod, but I guess we're here for the approval of these locations. Is that right, Lisa? Okay.
we had Jonathan as a speaker, but that's you, so I can't get rid of that one. We have Gary Adkins, followed by Jan Wyland? Whitland. Okay. So, who wants to speak first? Yeah, I just called you. Come on up.
You need to come up to the speaker. You can just sit right here.
Hello. Just based on the notice I received in the mail, I have a couple of questions. One was about the air conditioning units. I was wondering where they're located, and you were pointing that out. And as to the noise they would generate, is there any regulation as far as noise abatement if they do make a lot of noise? So it's just a general question. And I was also wondering about the 3 existing dwelling units. I was under the impression that was a...
Yeah, that's incorrectly noticed.
Oh, I found that a little strange.
Yeah, there's just 2.
Okay, there's a single-family residence and then a new house
yeah.
in the east corner.
And just, if I may, Madam Chair, this was 2 units, and so the process we went through was to turn this back into a single-family house and put the second unit as a freestanding unit here. So yes, there are only 2 units on the property.
Right. And there will be an addition built on the back.
No, there's no there. Well, yeah, there is basically we're remodeling. It really
Right.
isn't much of an addition. It's taking the old square footage and just turning it into one single house instead of it being
actually,
split into two.
based on the footings that are poured out there, it looks like it's a fairly large addition. But there's an enormous amount of wall building going on. That I don't know if the board ever actually goes out and looks at residential projects. Do you? Or?
Actually, Gary, this is like what you're supposed to do is just comment, and then we won't answer your questions right now, but we'll ask the applicant during the question period of the hearing, and then so just state all your concerns, and then we won't have a discussion with you right now during public comment. We'll just address it when it comes back to the board with questions.
Well, I think that's all I had to bring up.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Jan Whitland.
My name is Jan.
Or Jan, yeah.
That's right. I'm located north of this, right above the guest house, so right here. And I think you guys addressed some of my concerns.
So that's the fence that adjoins. Yeah.
And this is how it looks from my view. This part right here is about 9.5 feet, and then it drops down to about 8.5 feet down here. This is my deck, and it's really cramped back here, as you can see. So really, my wish would be to actually have no fence here at all, but replace with the trees or the hedge that was there previous to construction, because that provided a lot of privacy, and it's just very close to the property line altogether. So that's my view on that. Other than that, I just have some more pictures as far as what we're looking at here.
You got the AC.
And here we got the AC location, which will be right down there, right next to the chimney. Again, just to reiterate the concerns about noise, obviously it's right next to the property, so if whatever can be done to mitigate that will be appreciated. And just another comment too, we didn't get notice initially on this. It got lost in the mail or something, but this guest house is really close to the property line. Actually, the distance from the gutter to the property line is 44 inches, so it's really cramped back there. So
4 inches?
44.
Oh, 44.
Yeah, so I can basically reach up and touch the roof, but regardless, that's all said and done by now. But again, my concern is that a green screen would be, from my viewpoint, to be preferred to a fence, and also pay some attention to the noise issue for a potential air conditioning unit.
All right. Thank you, Jan.
Thanks.
All right. If there's nobody else that wants to speak, then I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who wants to start questions?
I'll start questions.
Go ahead, Keith.
First to staff. Are there any regulations on the sound from the air conditioners?
Yeah, as for the location of mechanical equipment like that, in addition to not being in the setbacks, we regulate the sound level measured at the property line. So we have to, it's 53 decibels measured at the property line.
Okay.
So we ask for information on the decibel level of the unit itself, and then we can calculate how that decibel level declines with distance.
Got it.
You're saying it's 53 at the property line?
Right.
I thought it was 60 at the property line.
It's
60
adjusted
dBA.
to CNEL.
So it's
53.
53 CNEL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian, that's an as-built condition of the location of the air conditioner. It wasn't on the original.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's what we're getting
Got
those
it.
locations approved
Those
as
are my
part
only
of
questions.
this.
Thanks.
Okay. Stephanie, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
I said, how often do you actually use an air conditioner in Santa Barbara?
That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Do you want me to come back to you?
What is the material of that fence? That white fence right
That
there?
fence is just painted wood.
Painted wood,
Yeah.
okay. And that is, the actual distance is 6 feet from that?
Well, the building is set back 6 feet, and so with the overhang is probably the 44 inches
Yeah, I understand
that he was
but
mentioning.
It looks really smaller than that there, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
there's nothing illegal about the
Okay.
structure, and at this point, again, that fence, the intent is to modify that fence so that it meets the requirement of 8 feet.
Okay.
And that really, at this point, that issue is moot, and I know the intent is to plant back in there, but obviously, at this point, the first step is just to get a fence built on the property line.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Brian, so I was, a couple of questions about this wall where it terminates here. This looks like another shot of this wall, correct?
Correct.
Except from
From the other
neighbor.
direction,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there looks like there's a wall of, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet just prior to getting to that wall.
It's this one, right?
Yeah, what there is, right now, there is this existing stone wall, which shows in the original pre-construction photo. So that stone wall that is leading in front of the house is right here, and it goes all the way to the property line.
Okay.
Part of our proposal is to build this new 2-foot-high sandstone planter wall that's going to be in front of that, and that vaguely, it's really not depicted in here because you really can't see it, but there's going to be that additional, basically an additional layer in front of the 8-foot wall, which terminates right there. So that's the termination of that wall that you see in the photographs. And that's where we intend to plant those king palms to help mitigate at that end condition.
And I think your question was actually in that one perspective, looking in the other direction. The wall that you see in front of it is actually our garage wall, which is 9.5 feet high. And then there is another.
So that's that.
There's another 3-foot retaining wall for the front yard area.
Okay, so that photo is taken from here?
Yes.
I think what's confusing is that, to help Kirk, I just figured it out. This is not on the property line. It looks like that's a sidewalk, but that's not on the sidewalk.
Yes,
This is inside,
that's
internal.
the sidewalk
and
that
this
was here.
is the sidewalk in front of it.
That's
Yeah, I
correct.
You got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's Jonathan's garage right there.
Okay, now I understand that, thank you.
So this actually, all this sandstone work is actually new wall that's going in this area right here.
Okay. And then the actual height of the wall then, how high does it get? Looks like it varies because the grade is varying.
Sections on the other side of that sheet.
Oh, okay.
Show that.
So there you can see the 8. So what is this? So this is showing the 8-foot condition. So you can see here where it exceeds the 8 feet is as it approaches this wall.
Okay.
And on Jonathan's side, where's that one?
So that's it right there.
Yeah.
That's the difference between 8 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the other wall, we don't have a section there, Lisa. But on this other wall, there are just some few locations incrementally where it exceeds the 8 feet, but it probably averages less. Yeah, there it is.
I don't
So
think we're exceeding on that side.
so this wall is okay.
That wall should be fine.
Oh, well, thank you for making that clear.
Another question then.
So it's just this is the only mod, assuming that this is rectified. Okay.
Well, it's really just that length?
It's just that length, and there are, I guess, where's that backyard shot at Jonathan's? As I recall, technically speaking, the wall exceeds 8 feet from grade on Jonathan's side, because you can see he has this stone wall that serves as sort of a plinth to the new wall.
Right.
So it's less than 8 feet from here, but it's a little over 8 feet from that side. But this is taken from the Jacobson
On
side.
that section, you can see it dashed in.
Oh yeah, there you see. So that's
graded.
that's that condition at Jonathan's. So that's his grade, and he has that stone wall that creates that plinth.
Okay. So when this was development for this property or the remodel was approved, was there a hedge there that was now been taken down? Is that it was a hedge to remain?
Well, we were going to replace it with an 8-foot fence.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Wood?
A wood fence.
Wood fence,
Yeah.
okay. And was it, obviously it wasn't exceeding the height limit at this point?
The hedge
When it was
did.
approved. The hedge did.
The hedge that this replaces was always that high. The specification, because
Yeah.
8 feet is the maximum.
It was
that's
just a
what
note
was
on the
it.
plans.
Okay.
It wasn't drawn.
All right, those are my questions.
Okay, thanks. Gary? Chris?
Just a quick clarification. Just to clarify briefly, this fence in the back that abuts the neighbor's deck and railing, that's planned to be lowered and a vine planted on it eventually?
Well, the intent, we haven't talked specifically about what the plantings would be back there. Obviously, as the neighbor pointed out, it is tight, and his deck is right up to that. But this area is, we do intend to plant back in this area. But
On here, Brian, can you point it down on that one?
You can take that with you if you need.
So this area will be planted back here, but the intent is to basically make the wall comply with the 8 feet. So there is some flexibility as far as raising the grade back there or cutting the fence down. And that's what the Jacobsons intend to do, so that doesn't become a modification.
Okay. And is there room to plant anything? Where would you do that?
Well, there is. I mean, it's this photo doesn't really show it, but there is. I thought we had another. You can see there is
okay.
ability to plant. back in here. And this area is going to get additional soil, which is going to affect that height.
Okay, so that's my only question.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Did I get you? You didn't have any? Did you? I already did. So this wall isn't coming farther any more forward than this? That's
No.
it? Okay.
That's it.
That was my question. Okay, comments? Go ahead, Keith.
I think in the question of the concrete stone walls, I think the area is fairly minor, and since the neighbors doesn't have any issue with it, I think we can support the modification there. I would do so on the condition that Brian's suggesting, that the wall not be plastered and the concrete remain. With regard to the neighbor at the rear, I think you need to provide proper screening of the air conditioning, improve that the enclosure meets the code requirements for the acoustics to the neighbor. And it sounds like the preferred solution for the rear fence height with the neighbor would be to lower the existing or as-built condition. So I would encourage you to work with your neighbor to create the solution there, and to also work with them in regards to any plantings that are added. That's it.
Thanks, Keith. Kirk? Since you seem like you're ready.
Something about the wall and the concrete, and I think, there's such a fabulous job is being done on this residence. I'm just, admiring the craftsmanship and the attention to detail of traditional materials, with all the stonework, the copper gutters, the slate roof. It's like no expense spared to recreate a beautiful traditional residence, and both houses have traditional character to them. And then there's this poured concrete wall that's 8 inches thick that comes right out. You can see it from the street. And it's 9 feet plus right there, for everyone to see. I just think that my comment would be that mitigating the height of this portion, stepping it down like it's done in the back, would, I can't imagine that that's really going to make a huge difference in terms of the view impact between neighbors, and that I think a different material, some more traditional finished material needs to be used, if not for the whole length, at least for that portion that's visible to the street. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Kirk. Gary? You forgot something?
Yeah, just one other thing. I also, with all the massive stonework out in the front there too, the other thing that bothers me is, that 8-inch width, that little thin, line width going up 9 feet, plus, the step downs to other areas. So it's really, visually, it appears even higher. Even at 8 feet, it's going to appear very high because of the way the grade steps down adjacent, and just a couple of feet away from it. So the thinness right at the termination, I think, is a problem as well.
Thanks, Kirk. Carrie?
Yeah, I would agree with Keith about the back wall, to work with the neighbor to probably bring the height down of the wood fence rather than bring the grade up, and just to work with him on the planting in that back area. Change the plans about the sound level on the air conditioning unit, and make sure you don't have any setback issues with some other things that I may have or may not seen in the photographs. As far as the wall height goes, the 8 foot, both neighbors are okay with the 8 foot, and with the house being close to it, the concrete wall does help with the sound. But I'm with Kurt on the aesthetics of it. I feel like the concrete is not the right look for the type of architecture that has been done here. Slate, copper, lots of stonework. My first thought was that it needed to be stone, but I think that stone would make it is too thin to really pull it off to look. And really, if we were looking at it, there was a hedge there before. I think if it was clad with a creeping ficus, with that stone cap that's on top of it, I would be okay with that. But I certainly would like a note on the plan or something permanent on the plan that that wall is to be covered with vines, and that it would be very green and look like that. I would be in favor of that, but I really am not in favor of the material being exposed as concrete as a permanent solution. I think if it is going to be exposed, it should have a natural material like stone or something that would be traditional for that time. And that would be the only comments that I have. I don't think that it needs to be lowered down in the front, although I think it would look a lot better if it did have a gentle slope towards the front rather than the harsh edge. And maybe there could be a landscaping solution, but I'm okay with the height.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Gary. I think I thought, did I read somewhere? Did somebody state that there was going to be a ficus vine planted on that wall?
Well, yeah, the intent is to plant it all out. You can see even Jonathan on his side has already started to plant it out.
So my thought is that with a ficus vine or some other clinging vine, I guess ficus would be preferred.
Ficus reference, creeping fig.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfect. For a concrete wall, it's perfect.
Right, and even Boston ivy can work, even though it's deciduous, but still the look it helps to soften quite a bit. So I think I'm fine as long as that is covered, both sides of the property, so that there isn't really any of that exposed concrete wall look, because it really doesn't match, I don't think, what's happening elsewhere. And so beyond that, one of the issues that I'm seeing here is I'm concerned about the oak protection here. Some of these photographs are very revealing in terms of a lot of equipment and material that is underneath all these oaks in their root, critical root zone. And I don't know if there's an arborist involved with this, or which walls were existing versus new, but there's a lot of intrusion and a lot of weight being put on the roots of these trees, and they may decline if they're already not starting to. So I think whoever's running the job site should take a hard look at protecting those oaks. But that's it for my comments.
Thanks, Chris.
I agree with, as long as the concrete wall is planted, it's fine with me. And all the other comments with regard to the other fence at the second unit back there being shorter and additional planting. Is there some other, you mentioned a palm out here to mitigate that view of the wall, the concrete wall? Is there another other type of tree or planting that could further mitigate the view of that wall?
Well, certainly some more full shrub-like material at the base of this. I mean, again, it seemed like the palms being on the site and wanting to be relocated would work there as sort of a foreground to that wall. But I think some additional shrub planting at the base would also work and make sense.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, Stephanie. Thanks. I'm just struggling with this concrete wall. But if it could be fully planted, we normally don't approve walls and then assume that it's going to be, that they're going to be fully planted. So I guess what I would have to see is that documented on the plans, both the screening of it with regards to additional shrubbery in addition to the palm trees, but some other kind of confirmation for me that a creeping fig or something that is going to not be deciduous and expose that concrete in the wintertime. I just think it looks like an unfinished wall. I agree with, who was it, Kirk said that, I think you were the one that first said that it just is a shame that so much beautiful stonework is being done, and yet this wall is just this concrete wall. And this area of town has a lot of beautiful stonework, and that's part of the beauty of this neighborhood. And it's not a 3-foot concrete wall. It's an 8-foot plus concrete wall that's pretty close to the front property line. So I think anybody driving by for a long time is going to see concrete with the formwork removed, and it's going to look unfinished. In fact, it was meant to have stone because the cap wouldn't have been this tall on it, and it just looks like an unfinished wall, and it's going to look that way for a really long time.
Well, the wall, I mean, it was intended to be left either natural or plastered, and in fact,
plastered, yeah,
the neighbor on the other side plastered the wall, and I'll tell you, I'd encourage you guys to go out there because the concrete is just, to me, goes away and blends more with the site than what happens when it is plastered. It becomes it just looks like a plaster wall with a stone cap on it, and it's not very attractive, and it makes it stand out a lot more. I believe the concrete, at the end of the day, planted out, is going to disappear more than any other material.
Yeah,
So,
I just think that for me, this detail right here is inappropriate. The cap is too far away from the face, and I think that this thickness of the wall doesn't, I think that if it was originally going to be a concrete wall and it was supposed to be a beautiful concrete wall covered by vines, then that detail should have been done differently. So that's the way I feel about it. And I'm not. I can see the concern. I can see that why do spend all the money for stone when you're going to cover it up with vines. I hear you there, but I think it's. I think it's something that needs to be.
So
I need to be convinced.
If I can just chime in
really
quickly. We recently visited the Getty Villa, which has exactly this treatment throughout a lot of the pedestrian areas leading into the main villa site. Obviously, Italianate in nature. From that, looked at the plantings. We have planted out. They're very small at the moment, but in fact, we did choose creeping fig alternating with climbing rose. And those are, they're growing right now, and that's our intent, is that this is going to become...
I bet at the Getty they didn't have that detail, though. See, that's my point. So it's just, if it's covered up by the creeping fig and you don't see that thickness, then in the future that's...
At the end of the day, the creeping fig is going to be 4 inches thick.
So, okay, so unless it dies and falls down. So anyway, that's... I'm not going. It's not a deal killer for me. I just think that it needs to be documented somehow on the plan so that we're guaranteed what we're going to get from it. That's my opinion. So,
as well as the foreground.
And I agree with the other. Yeah, as well as the planning. And I agree with what the other said about working with the neighbor, about not raising your grade but lowering. I mean, I think that would be a nice neighborly gesture to do that. Just based on the photo that I see of what he's looking at and how that's the area that's over 8 feet tall.
Yes.
So,
yeah, that portion right
Right,
there.
that portion right there. So, okay. Does anybody want to make a motion? This is
really just comments to the
more comments for modification. Yeah. So this is comments to the staff hearing officer.
But we will return back with. I apologize for not having the information on the condensing units.
For project design approval, you have to return.
With that and with the planting.
I'm looking at you. Anybody?
So this would be a continuance to staff hearing officer, Tony, with the following comments. With regard to the as-built condition of the fence at the rear property line, the board feels that the fence should be lowered per the request of the adjacent neighbor, and that any planting should be resolved or worked out with the participation of the neighbor on the planting design. The board can support the modification for the height of the as-built wall if sufficient planting is provided to fully screen the concrete material. The board would require a landscape plan as proof that that would be accomplished. And the applicant would have to return to the board with details of the screening of the as-built air conditioning locations and proof that those enclosures meet the acoustic requirements of the zoning ordinance.
All right. Second to the motion? Made by Stephanie. Under discussion?
Under discussion, I think,
Critical reason.
yeah, I guess, I don't know if we can require, but encourage the applicant to employ an arborist to monitor site work so as not to adversely affect the existing oaks.
Yeah, and I can assure you that those oaks are a treasure to them, so he wants to be sure they are
Yeah, I'm sure they don't want to lose
so we'll pass that on.
Okay. What happened to my green light? Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposition, one abstention from Kirk. Motion is carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes the televised portion of the ABR meeting for April 2nd. Thank you.